Maggie, 56, stood frozen by a dumpster, clutching her frayed field notebook like it might fly off with last week's hope. Seattle drizzle seeped into her cardigan. Then, a stranger in frog-patterned galoshes thrust a steaming chai into her hands. "Saw you eyeballing crows by Pike Place." They grinned, jerking a thumb toward a gaggle of women in binoculars by farmers' market kale stalls. "We're Rogue Bird Brigade. Got a tally sheet with your name on it." Maggie stood frozen by a dumpster, clutching her field notebook, same one she'd used decades ago to sketch wildflowers with her daughter. Now its pages held scribbled tallies of crows and sparrows, proof she hadn't entirely given up. Seattle's drizzle misted her glasses as she hesitated, then fumbled for binoculars. Age had made her hands less steady, but not her curiosity. Eco-grief had gnawed her like a slow leak in a kayak, sinking her inch by inch until even NPR weather reports felt like obituaries. But last week, a flyer Ballard Farmers Market caught her eye. Urban Bird Collective. No experience needed, just sharp eyes and stiff boots. Turned out, half a dozen women her age were counting pigeons like it was their civic duty. They met Sundays by artisanal honey stall, swapping stats with intensity of fantasy football fans. Maggie's deepest fear wasn't irrelevance. It was becoming a ghost in her own life, watching world unravel from behind double-paned windows. But jotting down a Stellar's J sighting, its blue wings flashing like a struck match, sparked something. Each entry was a tiny rebellion against despair, a way to say I'm still here, paying attention. She tripped over a rogue shopping cart on her way home, laughing herself. Clumsy steps aside, notebook in her pocket hummed with purpose. Those birds didn't care about carbon quotas or melting glaciers. They just lived. And so could she. Maggie, 56, stood frozen by a dumpster, clutching a rumpled field notebook, her late husband's, pages still blank as hollow in her chest. A rustling above snapped her gaze upward. A streak of iridescent green darted past, Anna's hummingbird, wings a blur, diving toward a scraggly fireweed pushing through cracked pavement. Her breath hitched. That defiant little bloom, that flash of life, it felt like a nudge from universe. 3 blocks later, vibes shifted. A cluster of folks huddled near Pike Place, binoculars trained on a peregrine falcon perched on a neon sign. One woman, sleeves rolled up to reveal tattoos of monarch migration routes, waved creator over. "You're holding a field guide like you mean business." She grinned. No pity, just an unspoken join us. Turns out, Seattle Urban Bird Collective met Saturday's farmers market stalls, swapping sightings over cinnamon rolls. Maggie's first attempt logging species ended with her mistaking a crow's molt for possible rare albino. Laughter bubbled up instead of shame. These misfits celebrated blunders as part of chase. Notebook pages filled. Boosh hit frenzy in Cary Park, 11:37 a.m. Teen on skateboard scared them off. Note: urban wildlife includes teens. By summer, woman led beginner walks. Her notebook now a mosaic of sketches and grocery lists. She taught others how spotting a barred owl silhouette against a street lamp could stitch wonder into worry. Some days, eco-grief still lapped her ankles. But tracking a violet-green swallow's nest under a freeway overpass? That was resistance. 57, she pressed that notebook into a nervous newcomer's hands, a college kid paralyzed by climate headlines. "Start here," Maggie said, tapping blank pages. "Every tally's a love letter to what's left." Overhead, starlings swirled into shapes only they understood. Maggie clutched her field notebook tighter, its cracked leather spine warm from her grip. Behind that dumpster, a flash of movement, just a rat. Again. 3 weeks into this urban birdwatching gig, and all she'd logged were sparrows with attitude and one raccoon who clearly knew it was being judged. 56 years old, and here she was, lurking behind Thai restaurants like some deranged nature spy. But Thursday meant farmers market meetups with Collective. She trudged past kale vendors, past Guy, who always tried to sell her mushroom elixirs, to where group clustered near Honey's stand. Their vibes were all binoculars and battered notebooks like hers, their laughter sharp against her doubt. One woman waved a photo, a barred owl perched on a parking meter. Maggie's throat tightened. She hadn't even heard an owl since that notebook became her rebellion. She rose before dawn, stubborn as crows heckling her from power lines. She learned their routes, their gossip, how they mobbed hawks twice their size. Her entries grew messy with sketches. Crow HQ, Maple and 34th, 5:47 a.m. Bring peanuts next time. Weeks in, she spotted a hummingbird nesting in a traffic signal. Its tiny body vibrated with purpose, stitching a home from spider silk and lint. Maggie's pencil hovered. Something in her chest unclenched. Eco-grief still lapped her, sure. But now she had data. Numbers to prove life persisted, even here. Collective's maps showed hotspots. Warblers in vacant lots, heron stalking drainage ditches. It wasn't saving planet, but it was bearing witness. And when she finally logged that first owl call, a low "who cooks for you" from a shadowed alley, she grinned so hard her cheeks ached. Notebook's pages whispered back, "You're still here." So are they. Keep counting. Woman stood frozen by a dumpster, clutching her field notebook like a life raft. Inside, scribbled observations of urban sparrows, tiny survivors in a city choking on concrete and smoke. Climate dread had hollowed her out for months, but this was proof something still fought back. She didn't just watch birds anymore. She documented their rebellions. A crow snatching fries from a distracted tourist, juncos nesting in abandoned shopping carts. Her notebook bulged with evidence of life refusing to quit. When local farmers market put out a call for community science projects, creator slapped it down on sign-up table before she could overthink. Setup day was chaos. Her display, a map of Seattle dotted with bird sightings, looked amateur next to glossy infographics. A guy in a Patagonia vest smirked her hand-drawn charts. "Cute," he muttered, not quietly. Maggie's face burned, but she uncapped a marker and added one last detail. A bright red X where she'd spotted a barred owl perched on a parking meter. "Take that, Mr. Fancy Graphs," she thought, grinning. Then twist. A kid shrieked, pointing her display. "That's my photo!" Turned out Maggie's, Vandal Owl, had gone viral weeks ago. Some teen had snapped shot, never guessing its location. Suddenly, phones were out, crowds pressing in. Skeptic's eyebrows shot up as creator flipped open her notebook, revealing dates, times, owl's fast food diet. Someone whooped. A reporter elbowed forward, asking how a retired accountant cracked urban wildlife tracking. Maggie's hands didn't shake. She held a battered notebook, corners frayed, coffee stains blooming like continents, and said simply, "Started paying attention." Laughter rippled through crowd. Later, over kombucha samples, Patagonia guy sheepishly asked for birdwatching tips. Walking home, Maggie traced a finger over her notes. Sparrows, owls, even that one dramatic seagull, they'd given her more than data. They'd handed her a megaphone. Somewhere between dumpster dives and accidental fame, she'd found her voice, and damn if it wasn't louder than she'd ever imagined. Maggie, 56, stood frozen by a dumpster, clutching a tattered field notebook, her late husband's, as a flash of emerald darted past. A hummingbird. In that absurd, trash-scented moment, something cracked open. Next morning, she marched into a community center with a wild idea, an urban birdwatching collective for climate-anxious souls. No expertise required, just curiosity and a willingness to stare pigeons like they held secrets. 6 months later, her ragtag flock, retired teachers, baristas, a punk rock grandma, met weekly farmers market benches, scribbling in notebooks with focus of detectives on a case. Maggie's odd habit? She licked her thumb before turning pages, a quirk that made everyone snort. Together, they logged species-shifting neighborhoods as temperatures climbed, data fueling university studies. But real magic was in vibes. Laughter over misidentified sparrows, shared thermoses of cider, way a teenager gasped when she spotted a barred owl mid-swoop. By year's end, Maggie's notebook bulged with ink-smudged entries, its margins crammed with doodles and grocery lists, proof that purpose could grow like weeds through concrete. She guided new members with a firm kindness, her once trembling hands steady, as she pointed out a Cooper's hawk silhouette. Climate grief hadn't vanished, but it had company, wonder, agency, a squad of weirdos turning dread into action, one chickadee at a time. Your turn. Grab binoculars, Joy's out there,